Well, thank you very much for coming to my demonstration. And it's really a pleasure for me to be back at Plein Easton. This has been really an exciting few days already, and I'm here to do a demo. My name is Mark Shasha, and as I was just mentioning, I'm not nearly as organized as you all, so I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to show you how I paint water today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before I get started, and then I'll begin doing a little bit of a demonstration here on how I approach water. Yesterday I did a demonstration on Tilghman Island. I think that's how you say it. Is it Tilghman Island? And I did a beach scene. I'm from New England. I grew up by the sea, and I love the dunes and long beaches with lots of grass and distant water. I'm just a romantic about all that. So for me, that's the kind of thing I typically paint. But I also paint water in the harbors, and I come from Swampscott, which is just north of Boston, about 12 miles. So as I paint, I will intersperse my conversation with you, telling you little tidbits of stuff. And I don't even know what I'm going to be saying. That's just how it always goes. So I've been a painter for all my life. I started out at the Rhode Island School of Design, majoring in illustration. I used to illustrate for the Boston Globe and the Boston Phoenix and magazines and newspapers, some of which are no longer around. But that's where I sort of cut my teeth on learning how to draw and draw for deadlines. And then I decided to write and publish my own children's books. I did that with Simon & Schuster. So I just brought one of my books along to share with you. This is Night of the Moonjellies, which it still climbs up the bestseller list every summer. It's a true story about my childhood in New London, Connecticut. My grandmother had a little hot dog stand, and so I thought I was her assistant manager when I was 7 years old. So I just basically lived at the hot dog stand and helped her, and I had my little apron on and all the rest. You'd have to read the story to find out what the Moonjellies are all about, but it's based on true events that actually happened. And as I say, it's still in print. Simon & Schuster published it, I think, 30-something years ago. And so my artwork, this is fun for me to tell you this. My artwork has changed since those days. When I was illustrating, sometimes I would do very realistic stuff, and sometimes I would do something a little bit more goofy or a little bit more cartoony, or, it varied depending on the assignment. So I was still kind of trying to find my footing as to what my style might be. But after my stint with children's books and visiting hundreds of schools, reading my books to children, I had my own kids and stay-at-home dad. I ended up digging into full-time painting, just painting, oil painting, and I just loved it. Of course, I always loved doing art, and it's really the only thing I ever did. It's not true. I was a waiter for a little while, and I did try a sales job. I don't know what it's like to quit a job, because I was fired from each job I had. I was no good at that stuff. It was not my calling. So I will come in and out of the screen while I get things. But anyway, so I have been doing what they call the plein air circuit, which is there's just all these events around the country. I think Plein Easton is the best one. It's the biggest one, and it's the one that all the other plein air events look to and say, wow, what are they doing now? How can we, So these guys are the superstars, and I thank you all again for having me as an alum. I came here for the first time in 2018, and I won an award for the won Artist Choice, which is the only award that really, I mean, that's the one you want. The other artists picked that one. and to be on, I'm still on that cloud, that my fellow artists would think I was worthy of that. So I kind of don't know where to begin. I brought everything with me. I'm already rambling. I'm sorry. Let me try to get a little focused. I'm going to show you some of my paintings, not from this week, but from random trips of the last couple of years, just so you get an idea of what my work looks like. So this is a sunset scene from Martha's Vineyard, a little 11 by 14 that I just plucked out of the studio. I just took them out of the, I left my studio in Swampscott and just grabbed a bunch of these. I've got stacks of these paintings. This is one of the earliest plein air paintings I did in Marblehead. And you can see I used to use canvas, a stretched canvas. But I learned that canvas like this gets picked up by the wind very quickly. So it's not your friend when you're out painting. And that's when I started switching to panels. This is a painting I did on the Erie Canal last year. I struggle with greens, and I'm still trying to figure out how to paint green trees and get them accurate. So this is an ongoing semi-trauma for me. I never quite feel like I get it right. This is a painting I did in Capri just about 3 weeks ago. It's just kind of some geraniums on the side of our little villa where we were staying. I'm always struggling with red as well. Red and green are the tough ones for me. Tough colors. Here's a scene from Lobos Point in California. I love to paint in California because the verticals near the water are fantastic. You get all these big rock formations and cliffs, and it's great. By the way, if any of you have any questions, just shout them out and raise your hand, whatever you want to do. But this is a waterfall painting I did in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So you're probably getting a sense of what I like to paint. Nature, structure. I like to do compositions with some care. This is from Capri as well. That's Vesuvius, the distance. It wasn't, didn't look like it was about to blow yet. So here's a scene from Martha's Vineyard, Gay Head. I mean, it's so beautiful there. When you paint it for real, people just don't think, is that a real place? Looks like you made it up. But so I go out and I look for things that are appealing to me, and I kind of, I mean, unlike some artists, I think I really don't know what I want to paint, and I'm going by my instinct, what I think I see. I may see something that's attractive, something that's caught my eye, and I don't know what it is. So I will stop and I will pause and I will kind of trust my instinct that there's something there. So I will take out my little viewfinder and I'll just kind of see, what is it that's grabbing my attention here? And sometimes I don't know what it is until I get underway. And sometimes I'll write a poem about the place, a little poem, just to kind of get my mind into how I'm feeling about this thing. And that helps me to subliminally kind of put something together. I don't know how it works. It's kind of a process that I've just developed over the years. So one of the other things I want to share with you, if I can, when I go out to design something, I usually find my painting and I find out what colors I'm looking at. Like, say, for example, something like this. What I will do in order to capture the colors out there in the field, I do something that a lot of my artist buddies don't do, and I don't know why I started doing it other than to speed things along. Because if you've ever done some plein air painting, you know that you have about an hour to get the whole thing mostly done. Maybe you can add another half hour, but if you're painting the same thing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that you started at 11:30, you're painting a completely different thing. By now the weather has changed, the sun has moved, the angles are all changed. And so the challenge is always, how can I paint faster without compromising quality? And sometimes some of those techniques that I use actually enhance my quality. So for example, something that I do is I take these chips that I cut from a pad of canvas paper that I get at the art store. And I just take a piece and I cut them into these little rectangles. And when I go out in the field to paint, I hold up this little chip against whatever it is I'm painting. I hold it up against the sky, the sand, you know, the major masses of where the troubling colors are. And I match the color. Do you follow that? So I match the color as closely as I can. And I know when I've matched it, when the edge of the little piece of paper starts to vanish as I'm holding it up. So if it needs more red, more blue, whatever it is, I'm making it up as I go. And I'm very quickly coming up with what I call a chip system. And the reason I do that is because when I go back to the studio, I want to have some record of those colors so that if I want to do a larger painting, a larger version of that painting, I have the chip with the color on it already. You follow that? So I can sell the original little plein air painting, and I still have a system that preserves all the colors of a particular painting. So here are the colors from one painting that I did at a beach in Martha's Vineyard about 8 years ago. And yesterday, I did a demo at Tillman Island using these exact colors. And that's the demo on the back. When you get a chance, you can go take a look at it. And this painting on the wall behind me is basically what is a larger version of the original plein air painting that I did. So the colors match. The greens, the blues, that's what I found out in nature. And so I find it to be a really incredibly useful system. And not only does that help me with my immediate work, but I go back to the studio and I mix the colors so that I have those colors in tubes. I don't know anybody else who goes through all this, but I find it incredibly useful when you get out there. And it's just one of the things that makes my work faster. You're going to hear me repeat that. I really want to get fast when I'm out there. So today, the demo I would like to do for you is I want to do a little demonstration of how I paint water. Yesterday was the beach, today will be water, and I'm going to be thinking about the reference in my head. I'm not going to be, you know, I don't have a photo or something. I'm just going to talk about why I'm doing what I'm doing as I go along. And I'll show you how I do it, and hopefully within the next hour I will have something that looks like a painting. That's always a gamble. So I'll just tell you about my tools. I have a variety of brushes, a few flats, some big fat round number 6, I guess. And I don't know what this is, number 8. These are some rounds. And then I like to draw with something like this. Winsor Newton makes this fantastic university round series of brushes. I love these brushes. They're great for drawing, and they're great for like getting in little patches of paint. And what do I like about them? They're very springy, and they hold that point for quite a while. I mean, eventually all the brushes go, and you've got to throw them out or use them for something else. But these Princeton university rounds are really great. So I'll put these out, and let's see. Yeah, I have my Home Depot specials. The bigger the brush, the less I spend on it. This is one of those chip brushes, I think 75 cents or whatever it is. And I use this for lots of stuff on my painting. Grass texture, all sorts of things. My palette I'll just tell you what it is. It's, I have warm white and titanium white. Warm white has a little bit of, just a little warmth to it because I think it's, I don't know what yellow they're using. They add to it, but something. I have some raw sienna, some Naples yellow, cadmium orange, Indian yellow, cadmium red light, scarlet, which is my new alizarin. I don't know how it's working out. We'll keep trying. Permanent green light, green earth, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, a little bit of diox purple, and some raw umber, and some transparent red oxide. So that's a lot of colors, but I probably won't use all of them, but I'll use many of them. So what I'm going to do to start, what I have in my mind is a trip to California about 4 years ago. The light was just bouncing off the water from the sun, and there were little boats in the distance, just light coming through the sails, and there was a landmass back there with some iconic buildings. So I'm just going to create that scene. I'll leave out the iconic buildings. I'll put in something else. Maybe I'll put in the lighthouse that we have here in St. Michael's or something. Just want to make sure my paints are ready to go. Some of them are not quite wet, so let me just put a little bit of that on. Any questions out there? No? I like answering all the questions before they're asked. That's great. I put this chair here. I hope it's not in anybody's visual way or anything, but it's true. When I'm painting, I get in the zone and I forget where I am, and I'll back up 2 steps too many and I'll be on the floor. So I don't want that to happen. So that's what this is all about. That's why that chair is there. Okay, I think I'm ready to do this. I'm going to start with this solvent-free gel that Gamblin makes. I really love this stuff because it puts a nice greasy sheen on my painting, and I like to work on a wet surface. So I'm going to go ahead and put this right on my panel. All right, I'm done. This is my minimalist, award-winning piece of painting. All right, just kidding. So I spread this around. Do I tint my canvas first? Sometimes I do, especially if I'm going to paint the beach. I like to give it a little bit of a transparent red oxide tint because that's basically the color of the sand. And that makes everything go much easier. But today I'm not doing that because I want to be able to pull out some whites right off the canvas and see whether I mean, I might not like that, but I mean, I don't know how it's going to work. We'll find out. Right. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of this, one of my mixes here. I'm going to start with the sky and the water. No, that's not it. Where is it? There we go. There's the sea. There's the blue. That. And here we go. You know what? I'm just going to put it right on there. This. I'm just going to mix it right on the canvas. I haven't done something like this in a while. Let's see what happens. So I'll talk about values, I'll talk about light, manipulating light, and what makes water look like water. What I'm doing here is I'm spreading this very light blue color. It's not exactly robin's egg blue, but it's kind of in that vicinity. It's a little paler than that. And I'm just smearing it all over the place, almost like as if I were tinting it. Again, one of the things that I have learned over the years of painting outdoors, you've got to get it all in as fast as you can. So sometimes, even when I'm in a calm, quiet, cool place, my instinct is to paint fast. So my arm moves faster than I expect. All right. Now, since the focus here is really just the water, I'm not going to, get into some of the tricky bits about values on land and how it versus water. The thing that makes water look like water, there's multiple things. But one of the dominant things is that it's reflective. And that means whatever's above the water has to be showing up in the water if you want to make it convincing. And you have to be mindful of what texture you're going to work on. What is the water doing? Is it as flat as a mirror, or is there a little bit of stirring up? If the water is getting a little wind on it, it's going to pick up some of the dome of the sky. And I was talking about this with people yesterday, being mindful of what is the sky doing. So I start with a very light blue because I want the flexibility of making parts of it darker and parts of it lighter. And it's easier to it's easier to darken something than to lighten it. So start with something a little bit lighter, I can always darken it. But if I start with something dark, it's hard to get it back to where I want it. So it's just one of those time wasters. And if I ramble too much, just interrupt, say, Mark, I don't know what you're saying. Please clarify. You've gone off the rails. I've got a million things on my mind. That's the issue. I'm thinking about how much I want to tell you, and I know we just don't have any time. So I'll do what I can. I go home and it's like, oh, God, why didn't I mention that? Sometimes, yes, I do. Thank you for asking questions. It keeps me focused. I buy the tubes hollow. They're empty tubes. You buy them on Amazon, or you can get them on Dick Blick. And I take my mixes, like these color chips that I have, and I just mix a big batch of one of them. Like I'll just stir up I'll get a nice big mix of that color, and I'll shove it into one of these tubes, and I pinch the back. So like you fill the tube up about this much, and then you pinch the bottom, and you fold it over, and then you've got a tube of your color, whatever you mix. And that is incredibly, incredibly useful when you go out to the field, because you just don't have time. I'm telling you, you do not have time. So it gives you something to start with. It's not the end. It's not like you're done. You still have to modulate it, and you're going to see me modulate this quite a lot. All right, so now another Home Depot special is the straight edges I get from there. I think this is a taping tool. Those of you in construction will know how to use this. I only use it for this. So I'm going to take a little bit of cobalt blue and a little bit of this kind of warm white, a little bit of raw sienna. I want to make not a really dark color gray, I think some kind of a neutral, maybe with a little bit of red in it. So I'm going to go with the transparent red oxide. And I'm going to put the horizon in. I'm going with something that is a little bit above the halfway point. I don't want to go halfway. I'm going to go up here. It's an interesting decision that you have to make when you're out painting, is designing your painting. If you put the horizon below the halfway point, then you're saying to the viewer, I want you to look at the sky. If you put the horizon above the halfway point, you're saying to the viewer, I want you to look under, like what's below. You follow that? If you put the horizon right in the center, you're telling the viewer that you're a little confused. You don't know which thing you want to really do. Now, I'm not saying you can't do that. A lot of artists do it and they pull it off. There's ways to do that. But these are just the basics that I think about when I'm out there. So I don't know where the buildings will be. I'll put something here. But just, some trees, something out there in the distance. So there's a landmass out there. Boy, that doesn't look good on that screen, does it? All right. Let me make it look better for the screen. Maybe it's a little bit of glare you're getting, but okay. It's a little something interesting out there. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention to this water. I've got something going on down here. I'm going to make this a little bit darker and a little bit greener. As it goes off, it's going to get a little bit bluer. Leave it kind of right there. And then I'm going to I want to make sure there's a little bit of a glow on that horizon. Something about looking at the dome of the sky. I talked about this yesterday. When you look above you, you only have about 5 miles of atmosphere. That's all there is. I know you think of the Earth as this great big thing, but the atmosphere around the Earth is very, very thin. So we have about 5 miles of atmosphere right over your head. So if you can imagine it, as you look more and more and more at an angle toward your eye level, you're looking through more atmosphere. So that sky above you may be very deep blue, but as you look this way, the sky is further away. There's more air, and that's why the atmosphere gets a little bit lighter as it goes along the horizon. So in this case, I'm going to do that. I'm going to mimic that by painting a little bit of warmth on that horizon. This is a combination of white and a little bit of transparent red oxide with some yellow ochre and a little bit of cadmium orange. And I just want to create that glow above my horizon there, just a little bit. And then take that warmth right up into the sky. Maybe some random a little bit of atmosphere kind of flying up there. Something like this. Geez, it really doesn't look like I've put anything on this canvas. I'm sorry. Let me do something about this. So we've got a little bit of atmosphere here. We've got a landmass. I've explained why we want to look into the water. So now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of green, a little bit of phthalo blue, some white, a little bit of brown, it might be a little bit dark, but we're going to go with this. I'm just coming up this way. As I described, I want this to sort of be a little bit blended here. It's important because of what I'm about to talk about. I can go a little darker here. And then I'll explain why I'm doing this. Not that I really know, but there's a reason why the water that's closer to us is a little bit darker than the water that's farther away. And I'll explain that. What happens is when you're looking into the water, right here, if I'm looking down into the water, I'm catching, the water is clear enough that I'm going to catch some of the bottom of the water, perhaps, maybe if you're on the edge of a beach, you get the idea. You're looking into the water and you're seeing deeper, darker things are coming at you. You see less of the sky is really what the point is. As your eye moves away into the distance, you're seeing less of that. So here I'm looking into the water more, and so it's going to be a little darker. As it moves away, it's going to get a little lighter, and that's the idea. So closer to us is going to be darker and browner, and as it moves away, it's bluer. So I'm going to actually make this a little bit, give it a little more weight, a little more heft. I like to paint water so that you can almost feel the weight of it as well. And it takes a few minutes to get it to where you really want it, but something like this. And I can go bluer back there. Just going to put a little more blue here. Now you noticed when I started, I let the water be the same color as the sky. That's because fundamentally the water is going to be picking up that sky color. So I don't mind. I can paint over it and I can adjust that. But gives me something to start with. So now I'm beginning. Now this is the sort of underway. Now my next step is to kind of focus on the texture of the water. So now I have the kind of the color and the value of what the water is doing as it moves away, and now I'm going to take this little rubber tip thing. This is called a color shaper, and you can get them at Dick Blick or any art store. And it's really just a rubber tip. And what it does is it takes a little bit of paint off, and you can control how much you want to take off. So I will start, for example, by just indicating a few places where some buildings might be out there in the distance. So we got St. Michael's, little buildings off on the landmass, just kind of indicating where they are. Just something to, I'll adjust these things. And now, I'm just going to put some random marks in the water, especially back here, kind of to suggest all that texture. The texture of the water itself. This takes a few minutes, but it's well worth it because it helps to imitate water pretty well, and it kind of gets it started. And I'm just going to go down here and put some, again, it's pretty random. I'm not trying to In fact, it might be better if I don't look at it. You know, like when you do things, when you're a painter and you're out there, you're painting every blade of grass. It's not natural if you do that. You're better off just kind of winging it and not even, looking at what you're doing, because it just tends to, you want random, you got to be random. So I'm really not giving this a lot of thought. All right, well, I don't want to overdo this. Oh, wow. If you're watching on that thing, you're not really seeing it. I'm sorry to say. I've got to do a better job of anticipating what the camera's going to do a little bit, but I'm just going to go a little darker and bluer here. So one of the things I talk a lot about is the light source, the direction of the light. It matters a lot when you're painting. You've got to really get that figured out. And in this case, the light is coming from a sun that is right here. So the sun is about here and it's coming forward. The light is going to be casting shadows on the buildings up here. And it's time to put some sunshine in that water. Might put a little bit more color in that sky first. So take this, just a little bluer up here. Oh, I didn't realize I didn't iron my shirt today. Sorry. Look at all those wrinkles. All right. So now I'm going to use a special white. This white is called Grumbacher Underpainting White, and it's titanium white. And I use it because it's really, really sticky. See how it's got this gooey, drippy thing about it? It's almost like fluffernutter. I don't know if you know what fluffernutter is in this part of the country, but it's a very Boston thing. It's a sticky marshmallow paste. And I love using that to make my reflections on the water. So I'm just going to bring some sunlight in like this. Come straight down. And I just lay it right in. I'll be doing some modification with it, but the way sparkles work, the way sparkles work on the water. If you think about it like a beam, like a big ball of light over the water. Directly under the water, you're going to get that bright line of sun reflection. But as the rays spread out, the intensity of that shine also spreads out. And that's why you get the most intense light right under the sun. But then as you move aside, either way, it gets spread out. So I like to get the elements into the painting before I put in boats or buildings or anything. I like to get the basics in, and the sky, the general landmass, the general area of the water, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to spread this out a little bit here and there, just kind of to demonstrate how it's done. I like to put a little bit of pink in the distance. I should explain this a little bit. When we're doing landscape painting, we have to remember that the dark things that we have, things that absorb light, like say a tree, for example, as a tree moves into the distance, it's going to look lighter and bluer because there's going to be that atmosphere that's going to be breaking down the intensity of that dark spot. It's going to look lighter and bluer as it picks up more atmosphere. All those little particles between you and it pick up that, begin to look blue. But if the subject is not dark, it's a light subject, like say the white of a sail, the white thing is going to get pinker and darker as it recedes. So this is why we have violet in the distance. When you look into the distance, you see that violet haze. The lighter things and the darker things are all kind of coming together to make that violet haze. So it's just something to be mindful of when you're out painting. Like that sail moving into the distance is going to look pinker the farther away it goes. So there's some stuff out here that's just turning pink, and I'm just going to put that pink in because I know it's out there. And this is just cadmium red light with a little white in it. And the same thing for the water that goes right into the water. So the same stuff that is in the sky is showing up down here. Now I'm going to get back to a little bit of this texturizing. Kind of pulling it back and forth. Not really giving it a lot of attention as to exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to be random about it. Just kind of letting those marks just fly. And you've got to be mindful of perspective too while you're doing this, because you know, as things move away from you, they're getting closer and closer together. The same is true with the surface of the water. Those little ripples on the water, they're farther apart when they're closer to you. As they move off, they're going to get closer and closer. So perspective is still there. Still something to think about. And I'm going to use my straight edge here just to reinforce some of this. So I'm just making sure some of these marks are all lined up. It's part of the convincing effect that I want to do. It's interesting how many artists have different styles and different approaches to things. I mean, I was always a storyteller. I liked telling stories, and I liked pictures that really took the viewer right into a place in a very narrative style. And so my illustration influence is really in my work. I'm really trying to draw things out and make things clearer. But there are lots of artists who have a completely different approach. There's nothing wrong with that either. They just kind of go in and dive in, and they're looser, or they have a different, they dig in a different way. So I'm going to put in some sailboats just by suggesting some sails at first, just so I can mark out some of these, some action on the water. And I'm just carving it in, carving in these little shapes. I'll get into it a little more as I proceed. Now, because these sailboats are backlit, the sun is behind them, I'm going to give them a little bit of a tint. So I'm going to take a little bit of ochre. You know, the sun is coming through those sails. It doesn't really work if I can't just paint them white, even though they're white, because the white, the highest value is going to be the sparkle in the water. I can't let other things be equally as bright. So I'm going to take a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of this reddish brown, and I'm going to put that right into the sail. Might have to lighten it up a little bit, but we'll see. Just marking out where the sails are. And as I was saying before, the thing that makes water look like water is that it's reflective. So you want to bring down into the water anything that's above the water. So as soon as I get this color figured out, like what's the appropriate intensity of it, I'm going to drag that right into the water below. And as those little reflections come closer to us, they go further apart. And again, that would be directly underneath the thing that it's reflecting. As the reflections come closer to us, they break up into wider spaces. And that, again, has to do with those ripples. Those reflections are hitting on the tops of those ripples. And those ripples, since those ripples are spreading out as they come closer to you, the reflections themselves should spread out. I need a smaller brush just to get some clarity here. It's a relatively quiet day out on the water here. We're not seeing lots of waves or anything, but I do want to make sure there's a little bit of a breeze taking those boats along. And again, this is a little bit of a, add a little, take a little off, add a little more. It kind of comes back and forth until it feels right. And again, sometimes it's a lot easier when you're out there painting from life because the answers are right in front of you. And here I'm just trying to figure out a good demonstration for you all. But a little darker up here in the foreground. Okay, here we go. I don't know if is that better? No. Just looking at the reflection. It's picking up a little glare. All right, so rough it up a little bit. Yeah, I'm darkening it because I want to really show the reflection a little more strongly than I have till now, and I see that I kept that value too high. I was so eager to show you everything, I was a little reckless, so this needs to be darker. All right, let's try this again. Yeah, that's more like it. Okay. Bring that darkness right up so that there's some movement, foreground to background. Now when I put the reflections in it, it should be a little bit bolder. Try it again. Something like that. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to this, Indian yellow. Get that sunlight looking a little bit more, a little warmer. We're just going to come straight down. Here it is. There we go. So these are the elements. These are the basic elements. I've got the water, the way I talked about it, darker in the foreground, moves away, and it gets a little bluer. And the sky is reflected into that water. And basically these are the basics of what I would do. And then I will just keep working this until it's more and more convincing. I will go in and I will put some texture here. I'll bring some of these reflections in. I might put a little bit of warmth up here where the sun is right over that part of that patch of the water. Something like this. So that you really get the sense, the intensity of the light coming down. And sometimes I will warm up the water also right near that, on the horizon a little bit, or close to it. And then build it up slowly. I think some of this is going to make more sense when you come up and take a look at the painting close up instead of the screen. But how are we doing on time? Is it 2 o'clock yet? Any questions? I'm going to keep working on this until they kick me off the stage. So. Good, thank you. So now I'm just going to work on the buildings a little bit back here. I'll be sort of backing in and out of these various elements, just kind of seeing what needs a little bit of fine-tuning. And now I'm going to put a little bit of glow right in the water there, right on this, right around in that area. I think it needs it. I like to see what the light is doing in a painting, and then I will enhance the rest of the painting to fit the light, to make to keep the light moving. It makes a little sense when you see it, not when you, it's hard to talk about. It's really hard to describe this stuff. But let me see what I can do. I'm being a little bit lazy. I'm going to clean my palette off. Messy palette makes a messy painting. All right. Were some of you at the demo I did yesterday? Oh, that's good. So I can say the same things. Ah.
Just don't forget to say it.
Right. There are so many things I want to say, and I never have enough time, but I'll do the best I can. So I'm going to put a little bit of a glow back here, right over where the sun is shining, right on the water. And I'm painting right over those sailboats. It's easier to paint over something than to paint around something. I can always go back in and put those things in. All right. I like to use different tools when I'm painting. I'll use the palette knife. Sometimes I'll use a sea sponge like this. This one got picked up by the seagulls many times, and they spit it right out, so it's got seagull spit all over it. I think it probably enhances my painting a little bit. But I'm just scratching some of this water to give it a little more texture. And I'm going back and forth horizontally. It mostly takes paint off, but the more you use it, it starts to move paint from one part of the painting to the other. And this is great for painting trees, stuff like bushes and things. I also paint with seagull feathers sometimes. All right. Just want these. That stuff that I put down to start the painting off, that gel, is still wet. So it helps me to keep moving the material around.
And what is that gel called?
It's called, where did I put it? It's, oh man, where did I put it? It's here somewhere. It's a non-solvent gel, and it's made by Gamblin. Where the heck is it? I don't know.
Is it like resin gel or
I don't really know.
body to it?
It doesn't have a lot of body to it. It's almost like an oil. Yeah, it's very liquidy. You know, it's not like liquid itself, but it has that ability to really, you can smear it everywhere around your painting.
And is it to make the paint set up faster?
Well, it does multiple things. One of the things that it does is it helps the painting dry a little faster, and it helps to keep the paint fluid while you're working it, and it also gives a nice little gloss to your painting. But I like it for just the helping of making the textures. Like when I rub this thing across my painting, it's great to have that staying wet like that. So I'm just going to go back and forth here and build up this texture. As I come closer, it's going to be broken up a little bit more, but I'm staying horizontal with most of these marks. right, so now I've really got texture here. I've got lots going on, and I just want to create that feeling of water. So I scrape off about as much paint as I put on. I mean, I'm just moving it around horizontally, randomly, suggesting rivulets of water, altering it a little bit, kind of feeling my way through it. And as I said before, it's a bit of a push me, pull you thing. You're adding and you're taking away. So now it's time to put a little more addition on. I get really quiet when I get in the zone, sorry. If any questions, just shout out. I'm just, really all I'm doing is pushing the I'm pushing the light on the water right now, and I'm pushing the darks where I need to, and I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. Right now it's light. I'm spreading the sparkles to the left and the right of the main sunshine spot.
Mark,
Yes.
it seems like you're trying to build up a nice thick layer of paint.
Yes, that's it. I'm letting the paint build up really one step at a time. Yes.
I'm seeing that you're, I don't know how to explain it, but you're working on the horizontal, but the initial lines you put down are like top to bottom.
Right. Yeah, I'm working on the horizontals, and the initial lines were kind of top to bottom, but you'll see that I erase it, then I put it back, then I erase it, and I'm just kind of, it's almost like making a sculpture. I'm trying to feel out how far to go, and invariably I go too far one way or the other, so then I got to reel it back in. So I go verticals. The one thing you don't do in water is you don't want to make a diagonal. You know, you don't want to do something like have a diagonal thing doing this or that, because that's just, the water is either horizontally or vertically reflecting. It's harder to explain it because, yes, there are some situations where something's diagonal and you're going to show up as a diagonal in the water, but you don't paint the ripples in a diagonal. They always have to sort of be straight horizontals. And the reflections are vertical coming down. And I just broke all those rules right here. So, but it's really just a little bit here and there is okay, but you don't want to do like some streaky thing across. And I know I'm sort of getting technical about it because, again, every painter has a different approach to these things, and this is just the one that I've learned over the years. It's not like anyone else is wrong and I'm right. It's more like just, this is the way I do it, and it really works. You know, like the classic thing about artists that's so frustrating about artists is we don't care about what's right or wrong or what's good or bad. We care about what works. Does it work? You know, if the rules are broken, so what? If it works, it's fine. And it's kind of hard to talk about that. But that's really where your emotions about things come in. And how do you feel about it? Is it working? You know. And that's a lot of the time why we sometimes can't find the words to express something. It's a bit of a struggle because how do you explain what works visually? You can do it, and that's important to do, but it's not easy to do. And right now, I'm wishing that I had started this painting with a tint of blue rather than work it like this, because I think it would have been easier to demonstrate for you if it already had a lot of this blue on there. And then I could just do the textures. But we're getting to the point where it's really just textures anyway. So. Right.
Say, okay, initially I had this in mind. Say, did I achieve that feeling? Do any sort of comparison?
I try not to reel it in like I do. I try not to put a pin in what I need to do. I have an objective generally, and if I get to it, I know whether it's working, and then I feel good about it. But if I don't feel good about it, I'll have to go back in and do something, you know. I usually miss the mark, if that's what you mean. Like I aim generally, but it'll end up over here, you know? It ends up kind of mushing into something. I very rarely get exactly what I expected. It does happen, but it's not always this thing. Right, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. This. Is this making sense for you guys? Yeah? You're awfully quiet. Scaring me.
So are you still feeling the slip of your gel?
Oh, yeah.
Like the brush?
Oh, yeah, this is very greasy. I like that. I love knocking around all these textures.
It's stunning.
Well, I'm glad you like it. I mean, the weirdest thing happens when I keep painting. It can start off and I don't know what the heck it's doing. It doesn't look quite right. But I find that the more I work it, the more I apply myself to it, it starts to come together. And it comes together in ways I don't always expect. I really want I just want a little bit of more organization back here, so I'm just going to take a second to do that. I want to get some warm neutrals, a little bit of brown, a little bit of red, a little bit of cool blue, kind of make something like that. I want to put it sometimes we can indicate architecture by simply making a little vertical mark or a little square, some geometric mark, and that will be enough to be convincing of a architecture. It doesn't always have to look like, you don't have to put the little windows on it or anything. Yeah, okay. It's makes a little more sense. Hold it together a bit. Yeah. Okay. Just some indication of buildings out there. Something out there. right, so I'm just going to give this sailboat a little attention. This one too. Bring some of that into the water. Like that. Okay. So really what I'm doing more is just, I'm not putting so much paint on it, I'm moving around what's there. Okay, thanks. So much of painting the water has to do with the texture of the water. Kind of the marks you're putting on the surface of the paint. It's a mix of soft edges and hard edges. Transparency and opacity. So it looks like my time is coming to an end doing this today. So I just want to say thank you all for coming to visit, and thanks for your questions and for hanging out. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to, when I stop, I'll put it so that you guys can come and take a closer look at this. Okay?